Alright, in today's lesson we're going to be talking about solving multi-step inequalities. So the first thing you need to know, what is an inequality? Inequalities are symbols of greater, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So you're looking for those are the problems we're going to be working on today. So there's some rules for solving inequalities. The first is, if you divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, then you must reverse the inequality symbol. So an example, let's say I have negative 8 is less than or equal to 16. Okay, and actually I should have an x there. Okay, so negative 8x is less than or equal to 16. Alright, in order for us to solve for x, we want to divide both sides by a negative 8. Well, anytime you divide by a negative number, okay, you must change the inequality sign. So that means that the inequality now is going to be pointing this way. So you're changing the inequality sign now that you divided by negative 8. So now I have x is going to be greater than or equal to 16 divided by 8, which is a negative 2. So you have to change the sign. Let's give it another example. If you multiply both sides by an inequality, by a negative number, then you also must reverse the inequality symbol. So let's give an example of that one. So let's say you have w divided by negative 2 is less than 4. Okay, so you have w divided by 2. So in order for us to get rid of the negative 2, we must multiply both sides by a negative 2. Okay, because you are multiplying both sides by a negative, you must change the inequality. So now that inequality has to change sign. So now it's going to be turning the other way around. Okay, now we have negative 2 cancel, and w is going to be greater than 4 times 2 is negative 8. Alright, so remember that anytime you're solving any inequality, you must reverse the symbol only when you divide or you multiply by a negative number. Alright, let's move on to an example. Okay, so now here we have a word problem. Math club members are selling Pi Day t-shirts for $7.50 each. The goal is to raise $500 by Friday. The figure below shows how much money they have raised by Wednesday. What is the minimum number of t-shirts they must sell in order for them to reach the goal? Alright, so we're looking for a minimum amount of t-shirts. So this is going to be an inequality. Alright, so we have already raised $337.50. So the first thing we want to do is we want to know what is the difference between our goal and what we have raised. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 500 from 337.50. Now if we plug this in the calculator, you're going to get $162.50. So we need to raise still $162.50 in order for us to reach our goal. Okay, now each shirt is going to cost us $7.50. So we're going to go ahead and make that $7.50 per t-shirt, and we want to raise more money than what we need, which is $162, or at least that amount. So I want to make more or equal to the $162.50. So now here's our inequality symbol, inequality equation. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and solve for t. So first thing is we want to get rid of this $7 or 7.5 in front of the t. So both sides we're going to divide by 750 or 7.5. Okay, so now t is going to be greater than or equal to 62.5 divided by 7.5. So I'll get my calculator and I get 162.5 and divide that by 7.5. We get 21.67. So let's say 21.7. Alright, so T is the number of t-shirts. Now, this does not make sense as far as we're going to sell 21.7 shirts. So we need to move this up to the next logical, the next higher t-shirt, or the next round number. So the number, or the minimum t-shirts, we're going to need is more than the 21.7, because there's no such thing as 21.7 t-shirts. We're going to say 22 shirts. So the minimum t-shirts are 22. Okay, 22 will satisfy the condition that it is greater or greater than the 162.50, and we can check that. So if we go ahead and plug in 750 times 22, it should produce a larger number than the 162.50 needed, which would be the 500 that we need. So let's go ahead and check that. We multiply 22 times 750, and we get 165. Well, 165 is greater than the 62.50. 162.50, so that works out for our correct answer. Okay, let's move on to the next problem. Okay, so here's problem 1. What is the solutions to 9 plus 4t greater than 21? We also want to check our solution once we're done. So we're going to go ahead and copy 9 plus 4t, and that has to be greater than 21. So if we're going to solve this, imagine this is an equal sign. Okay, don't do anything except reverse the sign only when you divide or multiply by a negative. So if we're going to solve for this, the first step would be to get rid of this 9. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 9 on both sides. The 9s will cancel, and you've got 4t. It's going to be greater than 12. Okay, we're going to go ahead and divide by 4 to get rid of the 4 in front of the t. Because the 4's are positive, we are not going to change the sign. That will still be the same. So t has to be greater than 3. So there's our solution to the inequality. Now to check it, we want to first start by using t equals 3, just to confirm that it equals 21. So 9 plus 4 times 3, is that going to equal to 21? If this was an equation, that, let's see if these are equal. So 9 plus 4 times 3, well, that's going to equal to 21. So this works out correct. Now, if we really want to check our solution, we want to make a number greater than 3, because t must be greater than 3. So the next number that comes up in sequence would be 4. So we're going to go ahead and use for t equal to 4. So 9 plus 4 times 4, that has to produce something that is greater than the value of 21. Well, that's 9 plus 16, and 9 plus 16 is greater than 21, because that's going to give us 25. So that means that our solution is correct. Any number above 3 would give us anything above the 21, which was our condition for the inequality. Let's move on to the following problem, to the next one. Alright, for the second problem, we're going to be looking at a word problem here. And we have garden, so we're going to be using a little bit of geometry. In a community garden, you want to fence in a rectangular garden that is adjacent to your friend's garden. You have at most 42.8 feet of fence. So here's our inequality. At most, can't go beyond 42.8 feet for the fence. What are the possible lengths of your garden? Check your reasonableness of your answer. So we want to check our answer, see if it works. So at most, we cannot go beyond a fence of 42.8 feet. So we are looking at this fencing right here. This is our garden. Our neighbor, who's adjacent, our friend, has this garden, and it shows us that it has a width of 12.3. So we're going to go ahead and use that to help us. So we're going to use a width W of 12.3 feet. Okay, and we don't know length, so we're going to have to figure that out. Now, if we're fencing something around, we're finding the length around this, we're going to use perimeter. So we're going to use the formula of P equals to 2L plus 2W. But this is going to be an inequality because we cannot go beyond 42.8. So we're not going to use an equal sign, we're going to use an inequality. So if we're going to kind of put together this, there's a way to relate it. So here it is. To relate this, we have twice the length. So we have twice the length, which is going to be 2L, plus we're going to add twice the width, with at most no more reaching than the value of 42.8. So when we use at most, that means that's going to be our inequality. We want it to be no more for our length and width to be below the 42.8. So that's the inequality we're going to be using. So we're going to go ahead and write it down here. 2L plus 2W has to be less than or equal to 42.8. Now we're going to go ahead and solve for L. Well, 2 times L plus 2 times W, or 12.3, has to be less than or equal to 42.8. We want to go ahead and multiply 2 times 12.3, or this is going to be 2L plus 24.6, less than or equal to 42.8. Subtract 24.6 on both sides, or 2L is less than or equal to 18.2. Divide both sides by 2, and our L value, our length, is going to equal to less than or equal to 9.1. So that means that our length has to be equal to 9.1 feet or lesser than that, in order for us to be within our size of our fence. Okay, so that would be our final answer. Okay, problem 3. Use the distributive property to solve the following inequality. Alright, so you notice that we have multiple choice. I wanted to bring this up so that you could see what is the right choice, because students will make mistakes even on something as simple as, or getting the right answer, and then they choose the wrong. Even if they got the right value for t, they get the wrong answer and choose and bubble in the wrong answer. So I wanted to show how that's going to work. So we're going to go ahead and copy this one down. 3 times t plus 1 is going to be minus 4t is going to be greater than or equal to negative 5. So we're going to do a little bit of distributive. So we're going to go ahead and multiply. We're going to distribute 3 times t and 3 times 1. We want to multiply those out. So we're going to get 3t plus 3 minus 4t is greater than or equal to negative 5. Okay, so once you distribute, the next thing you want to notice is, do we have any combined like terms? So if you notice, we have a 3t here and a negative 4t. We can combine those terms, and we're going to get 3 minus 1t, or negative t. You can put a 1 there. And that's going to be greater than or equal to negative 5. Now we want to move the 3 over by subtracting 3 on both sides. And we get negative 1t is greater than or equal to, it's going to be negative 8. So now what we want to do is divide by the negative 1 that we have here. Remember, when you divide by a negative, you need to change the sign. So we're going to divide by a negative 1. Because we are dividing by a negative 1, that means this inequality has to change. So these cancel, and you've got t, and now change the symbol the other way. So it's going to be t is less than the value of 8. So that would be our answer. Okay, now let's go back to what is a reasonable answer for our multiple choice. So I'm going to go ahead and put it up here. So t must be less than or equal to 8. That is our answer. So let's go through the choices. 11 can't be it, because 11 is too large. Remember, it says that t must be less than or equal to 8. So it can't be 11, can't be 10, it can't be 9, it could be 8 or anything less than 8. So Had you gotten an answer of 7 or 6 or 5, that would have worked, but t is less than or equal to 8, so this one works. That's part of the solution, so the answer is going to be A. Please be careful when you're looking at multiple choice. Make sure you understand what your answer is and what it means. Here, any number 8 or below would have been the right answer, so we're going to go ahead and choose for A. Alright, problem number 4, solve an inequality with variables on both sides. So, let's go ahead and write this one down. 6n minus 1 greater than 3n plus 8. Alright, if you have 6n and 3n, you got to decide which one you're going to move. Always subtract the smaller number. That way you always have n as a positive. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 3n because that's smaller than 6n. So I'm going to subtract 3n on both sides. And I'm going to get 3n minus 1 is greater than 8. Okay, now we want to move the 1, so we want to add 1 on both sides. And we have 3n is going to be greater than 9. Last step is to divide by 3. It is a positive 3, so we don't change our sign. So n is going to be greater than 3. And that would be our answer. Okay? Let's move on to the last problem. Okay, for the last problem, we're going to be looking at inequalities with special solutions. Alright, when they talk about special solutions, we're looking at two possibilities. One is no solution, and the other possibility is identity. So we're going to go ahead and figure out, okay, we're going to figure out which of these two. Is it a no solution or identity? So let's go ahead and start with this. We have 10 minus 8a is greater than or equal to 2 times 5 minus 4a. So first thing is we want to distribute the 2. So 2 times 5 is going to give us 10. And then 2 times the negative 4a, that's going to give us negative 8a. And that's going to be less than, so 10a is going to be the greater. And now we have 10a minus 8a is greater than 10a minus 8a. Notice that if we want to solve for a, we're going to have to get rid of the 8's, which means that we're going to have to add 8a on both sides. When you do that, you won't be able to solve this, and you have the identity of 10 being greater or equal to 10. Okay, so this is known as identity. Okay, now identity can also be thought of as all real numbers. Okay, that means that any number would work to make this correct, because there's no way to solve this. The numbers are equal. Okay, we're going to go ahead and say that it's all real numbers, okay, which is identity. If the numbers were different, okay, that example would be something of no solution. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up this section. Don't forget to do your summary, and we'll see you next time. Okay.